I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, Vagrant Queen fans, and welcome to the Vagrant Queen After Show. Today we have a very special guest in the house. We have the director of episode 4, which is called In a Sticky Spot. We have Daniska Esterhazy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Nice. And we're going to talk about the episode, go in depth. So have your questions ready in the live chat, and we will get to those. And then if you're watching it later, please comment down below your thoughts on the episode. We're glad to have you here. First off, my name is Carrie Lane, and I'm joined by my awesome co-host.
Hi, everybody out there. It's your boy, James Maple. Welcome to episode 4. I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yes. And then we also have a special segment at the end, so stay tuned for that as well. James, what did you think of episode 4? We're getting almost to halfway through the series kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that, like you said, we're halfway through. Like, the story is halfway over. I'm so excited. This episode I thought was great. This episode to me definitely was like flexing, I think, people's acting ability. I feel like we got a real sense of what it meant to be an actor. And I say that like from the viewer, but also the characters themselves having to pick up some acting skills and improv skills along the way to save the day. So for me, overall, I definitely dug this episode. One of my favorites for sure. So kudos to you for directing it.
Thank you.
Of course.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed this episode. I thought it was very exciting. We got a lot of important like one-on-one chats with different characters, which was nice. So they had moments to open up because, when you're on the run and trying to sneak into Republic space, you can't quite have those intimate conversations as well as you maybe normally could. Now, Danishka, episode 4, how does it feel to be part of the show as directing this episode? And then just overall, how was it directing this episode?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm such a big fan of the story. I loved the comic and I loved the show, and I was so thrilled to be invited to be part of it. And so I did episode 3 and 4, and in a way, it's kind of bittersweet because this is my last episode for this season, and I loved shooting it so much. But I'm also a fan, so I'll be following the rest of the episodes along with everybody else.
Nice. Well, that totally. What is it like then of kind of having episodes that bleed into each other? Because it is kind of, just picks up right where it left off, versus if you had an opportunity where someone offered you, okay, do you want to do episode 2 and like 11?
Yeah, no, it was nice for continuity. It was great for block shooting, able to do all the scenes on the Winnipeg at the same time and plan the story arc really carefully because the 2 episodes are so close together. I guess one of the challenging things on doing a show like this is it was our first season. So, everybody was, and this was right after the first block. I was block 2. So we were still kind of in a way finding our legs and figuring out the world. And the actors were so amazing. They honestly came into Ep 1 pretty fully realized. But I think by, episode 3 and 4, those relationships have become stronger and you get a sense of the chemistry between all the characters.
And we will talk about some of that chemistry later. I know the fans liked it on Twitter. I saw lots of nice little gift moments of that. We do have a question from the live chat. Barbie Evans says, what was your favorite scene in this episode and in episode 3?
Well, in episode 3, I think my favorite episode was the episode on the balcony in the loyalist camp with Decide. It was such a beautiful set, and we shot it at the end of the day when the light was falling. We had natural, beautiful magic hour. We had to rush to get that scene, but it was just such an inspiring location. And then also it was a really intimate scene, and Adrian was just amazing. Adrian and Colin, and this little moment they have at the end of the scene were so great. So I really loved that scene. I think for episode 4, my favorite scene was definitely the big fight scene in the finale. I was really excited when I first read that on the page. And the great thing, what's so fun, I guess, as a director about fight scenes is they're usually sketched out pretty bare bones on the page. So then you really get to dive in with you and your crew to flesh that out and bring it to life. and we had an amazing stunt team and an amazing on-set practical effects team. So we spent a lot of time planning that sequence together, and I was really happy with how it turned out.
Oh yeah, no, it looks fantastic. It's a nice long fight scene, which is great too. It's not just a and punch punch done. It's like, oh no, it goes on.
Yeah, we spent I spent 2 or 3 weeks planning that sequence, and then 2 full days shooting just that fight sequence. So yeah, it was a pretty amazing opportunity. We had a lot of fun. We blew a lot of stuff up. You know,
Yay!
you
A
have
lot
to
of
plan
pillows.
a lot of pillows and couches and cement walls, and and glass windows. You have to plan those shots really carefully, because once you blow them up, we didn't have time to reset anything. So when a wall's blown up, the wall is blown up. So you have to really carefully plan your shots and shoot it in a linear way, so that the room was getting destroyed as we shot, and that was our continuity.
Yeah. Nice. Speaking of planning, the episode starts off with their plan, which was kind of fun and silly too. Of the which one are you? And the cockroach. I like her share, Adrian sharing that online of, yeah, not a fan of cockroaches.
Yeah, I love the writing in that scene. And Mariko, who wrote this episode, she just has a really great sense of humor, and the banter and the repartee between the characters is really fun right from the beginning of the show. But then, of course, it goes to some really emotional places in the same episode too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed how comedic it was. Clive, also very funny too. R.I.P.
I love
We
Clive.
love Clive.
Kino, who played Clive, this is our second time shooting together, because he was in my film Banana Splits. And I'm a really big fan of Kino. He's got amazing comic timing. And he was such a trooper, because the Clive costume was probably one of our most challenging in terms of prosthetics. He had to come in, at 3 or 4 in the morning, and sit in the chair for hours and hours to get his head done and his body done and the costume, and it weighed a ton. So he was amazing, because the minute we would yell, or I would yell, action, he would just bring the comedy so beautifully. But then the minute we called cut, he would basically just fall back in exhaustion, because his suit was so heavy and he could barely breathe. So that is some amazing acting.
Yeah, and prosthetics.
In addition to the prosthetics, it's amazing too. We were talking to Tim a couple episodes back as to how the actors and you all can still exude like physical facial emotion under the prosthetics. That was such an amazing feat, and I've very rarely seen a show deliver it so well. How did you guys do
Thanks.
make those mouth movements so real?
Well, our effects prosthetics team in Cape Town, run by Adrian, is just really, really good. I mean, they put a lot of passion and very, when they designed the characters, they brought it from a character point of view. It's not just about looking interesting or being exotic or fun. Like, they really tried to bring the characters to life with those face designs and those body designs. And then, our cast were just really, they're so committed, and they really learned how to bring their character to life within the limitations of really wild prosthetics. But we were really, really very lucky, because it's not easy to even beginning to do prosthetic character work. You have to go in for a life cast, which can be really traumatic to anyone who's claustrophobic. They basically wrap you up like a mummy, and you breathe through tiny little straws for a couple hours, and it's really, it can be kind of horrendous. So that's where you start, and then you get encased, in silicone every day, and it's hot and it's heavy, and to be able to accept all those extra burdens on your performance and still commit to your character is always something I'm just hugely impressed with. Actors are amazing.
Absolutely, and the show has a lot of fun characters that still have so much personality behind those prosthetics. Their plan of going in as employees, James, what did you think of that? It makes sense of sure, that's a way to blend in.
I thought it was the perfect a perfect throwback to old Hollywood. That's just what you do. You go in undercover as the security guards, and I love too that quick moment of Clive saying to the crew, he's like, "You might want to air those suits out. They've been in here for a minute or two." But I thought that was such a cute, funny way, and I love how too. we almost, in my notes when I was taking notes for the show, I wrote the varsity squad and the JV squad. The JV squad being Ihred, Danjar, and Krob, I think his name is.
Rob, yeah.
I love how we almost have it almost is like two adventures happening at the same time, though one is much smaller than the other one, taking place in like the security area. But I love how putting on the security gear, we almost created two separate teams on two separate missions. I love that overlap.
Oh, I'm so glad. The moments between Ihred and Dengar and Krob were so hilarious. Those three actors did a lot of improv and had amazing comic timing, and they really became this tight little comic unit together. And every time they would come onto set, I was just I'd get a big smile on my face because it was so fun to watch them work.
I had a question of what was the location where you filmed? I mean, you see it more when they are running up to the ship. It looks like a sports coliseum.
It's the Cape Town Stadium, yeah.
Okay.
We took over every part of that building. So all of the utility tunnels, the back lots, all like a bunch of their rooms and entranceways, and redressed them. And it was so funny, of course, because we were trying to give it that kind of space airport feel. And at the time, we were just making endless jokes about how much everybody hates air travel. But now the film comes out and none of us can take planes. And it's funny how it feels different. It has a different tone that really I didn't expect, which was a surprise.
No, it worked really well.
It made us miss the days of being stuck in an airport for sure. I never thought I would miss the days of being stuck through airport security, but thanks to you guys, it definitely made me reminisce about the good old days in the past. So
remember how horrible airport security is? Oh, the nostalgia.
Well, that location worked out great. I loved all the different corridors and hallways. It was just one scene too when they rounded a corner. I'm like, that looks oddly familiar, but it's interesting too. I haven't been to the one in South Africa, but it looks, the same idea as like here in Los Angeles of what stadiums look like, but it still has like this sci-fi aspect because it's just that concrete and basic, there's not a lot of dressing on the walls or whatnot, and whatever you put on it or they
brutalist architecture. It was actually funny because that location was super busy while we were shooting there. There was like 3 other movies lined up to shoot.
Oh wow!
Wrapping as we came in, and then start shooting as soon as we left. So it was a very busy, in-demand location.
Actually, speaking of what it looks like, we got a question or comment, and I guess just a comment from the chat. Jim C says one of the things I really liked about this episode was the color schematics when it showed all the ships entering the port. I thought it was beautiful.
Oh yeah, I love the color scheme in this show. That was all down to Jem. She brought this idea of this really hyper saturated, gorgeous, gem tone color palette, which we've embraced, in all of our scenes, bringing in lots of beautiful, beautiful colors. And our cinema, I mean, that shot, of course, when they're coming in is all CGI, but to make it match with the rest of the world, I mean, our cinematographer, Trevor Calverley, he's really a genius with color, and he's able to bring in colored light in so many ways. And half the time you don't even notice it. Like, it's just, the whole world is infused with color, but he does it in a really organic kind of way, so that when they created the CGI to match his coloring, it all came together as one kind of universe, not ours.
Yeah. Then when we have the characters trying to break in and everything, well, right before they do, we do get our first chemistry fun moment with Elida and Amae of having their heart to heart of what would you say to your mother, and Amae kind of like, no, let's handle this together. And Amae is definitely all about the teamwork. Like, no, don't go by yourself. But then you also get Elida, who's like, nobody gets left behind.
Yeah, I love that scene they have together in the cockpit before they go onto the port. And I designed the lighting really carefully in that scene because I wanted it to feel really intimate. And when you're shooting on a spaceship, the lighting tends to be kind of the same. The room is lit in a certain way on the Winnipeg. But this was a really interesting opportunity because, of course, they're being towed behind Clive's ship, the Nautilus. And so the spirally exhaust from his spaceship is trailing past them in a kind of magical way. And so working with Trevor, our DP, we created this kind of pulsing colored light that changes throughout the scene and is reflected on their skin. And I thought, oh, it'll just, it's that one of those things that kind of encourages intimacy, you know, like when you light a candle and suddenly you feel like opening up to someone. So that kind of space lighting made that scene really fun. And then of course when Amae leaves and Half comes in, that intimacy is still there with the characters as well.
Yeah. James, what do you think of that moment too? So Half comes in and says, you know, fight with us. And then Alita's response is, okay, I'll do whatever my mom wants.
Yeah, so I love that scene. I feel like we were treated to it three times that I picked up on this episode, if I'm not mistaken. I remember actually last week, Adrian tweeted or on Instagram, she posted, and she's like, "Is this the episode where Amae and Elida kiss?" So I knew that it was gonna be like some jam happen in this episode. Unfortunately, it didn't quite happen the way we thought it was, but I love that scene. I thought it was. I hadn't really thought about the lighting aspect of it. That you mentioned, but like now looking back on it, it definitely created that atmosphere. You really got the sense that like this was the moment that we've been waiting for, and although it didn't happen, it was cultivated, it was there. So I thought it was a great little appetizer that we got. So it definitely kept me on the edge of my seat, hoping that the next scene would be the scene to see something happen. You know, you did a good play on that for sure.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, you know, they're just Adrian and Alex are so great together in those scenes, and they bring so much heart. So all the Amita moments, we didn't have the word Amita, of course, when we were shooting, we have it now, but you know, all those moments between them as their relationship develops are always really quite special and really fun.
Speaking of that moment, we have them when they're running through the hallway after the fun moment of Ame's a hacker, but it's not instant like we think it is from the movies and TV, which is kind of more realistic of like, okay, it's not going to happen in 2 seconds.
Absolutely.
And then they have their great like physical chemistry of almost bumping into each other. We had a question in the live chat of where it is. Sorry, I'm like, I just had it. Someone is asking, sorry if I'm not finding where it was, but they asked on Twitter, it was mentioned that the scene, oh, there it is, sorry. Barbie Evans says, you mentioned, I think she's referring to you, Danishka, you mentioned on Twitter that Adrian and Alex wanted to redo the hallway scene. What did the other takes look like?
Oh, you know, yeah, it was one of those things where, you know, our schedule is very tight and we're shooting very fast. And so we don't do a lot of takes. You know, maybe we do 2 or 3 takes for each setup. And when we have it, we move on so we can get our day. So I think we'd done 2 takes at that moment where this, you know, kind of meet cute moment where she pushes Amae into the corner. And I thought they were really great. I was happy with them and I thought they were lovely. But yeah, the actresses, they came up to me and they said, it was actually funny. We'd already moved on. So I was like, we've got it, we're moving on. Let's set up the next shot. And we've taken the camera and we were getting ready for another thing. And they pulled me aside and they said, you know, we don't feel like we got it. We feel like we can do better. And I was like, oh, you sure? Cause I'm very happy. And they were like, no, like give us another shot. We know this is such an important moment and we really want to make it perfect. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And so they did it. And, you know, and it's like that little thing you can't really put your finger on, that little magic sometimes in a performance when the actors are really in sync and they really click beautifully and they knew that it was still there and they hadn't got it and they got it. So it was really just lovely. And I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, okay. I mean, I thought the scene was already great, but that is better. Well done. So yeah, and then that's the take we used. And it was just really nice. It's so great to work with actors who are so committed and who want to make everything powerful and who want to make sure that they've always given their best. And so, yeah, it was a nice moment.
Aw. Actually, another question too, speaking of Amae, Adam Rodriguez says, is the show going to explore Amae's past of who she is?
Yeah, there'll be some more information about Amae's past, about Amae and her brother. I think there's even more story there to be told than we're telling in this season. I think her story is so interesting. We did a scene in episode 3 where Amae and Isaac are walking through the abandoned mining town, and they talk a bit about her childhood, and I really loved that scene. They dug into it so gorgeously, and Tim has this wonderful moment with Isaac where he talks about missing his family on Earth. I would love to do more backstory with all of them. There are some more interesting backstory moments coming later in the season.
We look forward to it. Seeing the backstories is so fun. We get another moment too. That was a really cool, powerful moment with Half and Elida. First, we have them on the ship of him saying, "Hey, join our fight," and Elida says she'll do whatever her mother wants, which I kind of doubt that. And later, Half, she's talking with him, and it's kind of a discussion about the course of our lives. Is it what we choose or what's been chosen for us? And her nice reveal of, well, not reveal, but like confession of the thing she never really learned is to value her own life more than someone else, and why some people should suffer where other people benefit.
Yeah, that's such an important key to this show. It was actually one of the things that first attracted me to the whole story in Mags Visaggio's comic book. She does such a great job in writing that graphic novel, in turning our expectations upside down, because we're so used to these stories of like a special chosen one who goes on a journey and they're so magical and everybody, supports them and they become this great figure. And I absolutely loved that, that the character of Elida is not interested in that at all. She is not down with the concept of monarchy. She doesn't want to rule other people. She wants to be left alone. And to me, I thought that was just so fantastic, because I was like, are we really going to be telling a story that says monarchy's great? But we're not. So it's kind of cool, and it's very sly, smart writing, and that comes right from the original story.
Nice. And James, what do you think of those different moments between Elida and Half?
I think in the first few episodes, I always got the sense that Half was Alida's dad for some reason. He has a very like patriarchal role in her life. I think we're realizing that may not necessarily be the case, at least now. I think it is interesting to see him as that figure, but in her current life now, because it's so starkly different from who he knew her to be back then. And I think it creates a dilemma for him, because he almost wants her to continue this matriculation that he's bestowed upon her, but she's like, I think she referred back to it in a sense in this episode where he had to correct himself and call her Elida, and she was like, "Oh, I was 17 when I did that," and it's like, yeah, you don't know me now. I made that decision for myself. Like, this was one of the first decisions that I made. Like, okay, it's very close to my original name, but this is my new identity. And I think he's having an issue with her womanhood now, and not being this like, young princess or queen. And I think that it's starting to affect their relationship, because she's creating her own kingdom, or her own queendom, excuse me, how could I, her own queendom with her circle of friends, her Isaac and her Amae, and I think it's becoming an issue.
And Winnibot.
And Winnibot, of course. I can't forget about the newest homie to join the crew, Winnibot. But I think
can't read the room.
I know, yeah. But Winnibot has the power to whisper. I thought that was a cute little jab in there in this episode. But yeah, I think that Hat is going to have an issue with Elida's choices moving forward, and we got a little sense of it today. I think there were at least 2 times that I can recall Half almost telling Elida to leave Isaac behind.
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment where Isaac fell from the floor, from one floor to the other, and he says something. I think he says he's gone or something like that. It's like, well, we don't know he's gone. Like, can we check first? And there was, like, let's make sure he's not breathing. Can we just peer over the no?
Half and Isaac are not good buddies.
Yeah. I just got a sense that he's very much trying to impose what he knew her to be onto who she is now, and I don't think that's in her MO whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that scene in the stairwell, where he really thinks that she should be sacrificing Isaac, for the better cause, and that Isaac and Amae aren't important. That the monarchy is important, her mother's important, but they are disposable. And she is just like has no interest in that worldview, which is so great, and what makes her such a wonderful character. She's under all this pressure to become something she doesn't want to become, and a lesser person would probably be very tempted by the power and the status and that kind of hierarchy that makes other people little people and makes her elevated, and she has no interest in that at all, which is why I think she's a lovable character.
Yeah. Speaking of Isaac, poor Isaac and goofball that he is that we love. Falls through the floor, gets kidnapped, taken in by Lazaro and his goons. Which also, I liked earlier, Danishka, you were mentioning, the monarchy. I like the moment with Lazaro when he's on the call with the admiral and he's pretty much getting his last warning, and they said like this is not the new world essentially that they've created, so there has to be steps and rules followed, which I kind of was like, yay. But it's hard because nobody's really the good guy in this situation per se, but I like that those moments are sprinkled in there. So I don't know if you have comments.
I loved that the scene between Isaac and Lazaro is great. I love it when they meet, and and Lazaro waltzes in, the famous Isaac Stelling. It was a lot of fun, and there's all these like crazy little details in shooting a scene like that. We had to tie Tim to a chair and throw him onto a floor while he's tied to a chair. It was such a great sport about it. I think I was more worried than him. I was like, there with the stunt people, like, is he going to be okay? Is he going to be okay? But it was an interesting moment, that conflict between them, and seeing how that's going to reflect. I think it'll have repercussions later on. This whole fight between the monarchists and the revolutionaries, and what kind of world they're going to create in this universe.
Oh, yes. And I definitely think I'll save it for predictions, but there's a thing that I will ask you, James, about what you thought from a moment, because there was a reaction that I'm like, So they do it. They're able to rescue him, which is great. But along the way, pretty much leads us to our shootout. And I thought it was super cool when Ihred gets the power suit.
Yeah, Mecha Ihred.
Yeah, I loved it.
I like that she notices it earlier, like, oh wow, this is a lot of firepower going on, and then she goes, all right, I know what to do. Because before, let's be honest, she was not exactly the most helpful in the group, so this really was like, yes. But no body, no proof, so I'm a little suspect that she's gone.
Fingers crossed. God, we kill so many characters. It'll be interesting to see, how the writers approach future stories. I hope we get to see a lot of these characters again.
The tease.
Like,
James,
go ahead.
No, in that scene, with right in the whole airport scene, I couldn't help but notice that there was a character in there that I wanted to ask you about, Danishka. There's the shorter fellow who accepts. You know where I'm going, Carrie. You know where I'm going, Carrie. Me and Carrie are on to you. We are on to you. So, if you've seen our previous episodes, Carrie and I both have a deep, deep love for our homeboy Nim. And we have a special segment we're going to do later on called Winnie Who, Winnie What, where we kind of go into the behind the mask of some of our favorite characters on the show. So we actually know who Nim's actor is, Mr. Themba Thule. And I couldn't help but notice this gentleman looked awfully familiar. He sounded a little familiar too. So could you confirm or deny my question that the merchant who's buying these orbs from Clive, is this Mr. Themba?
It is, yeah. I mean, he's such a great actor, and I think everyone loved him and his work so much for Nim that, we had to have him back because he's just amazing. And, one of the secrets of this show, and I'm glad you're interested in this, is that, yeah, I mean, we do reuse a lot of actors. You fall in love with an actor and no one's seen their real face, so you just bring them back in and make them a different alien. So yeah, there's a few reoccurring characters throughout the season. Particularly strong comic actors who were really game to try and to totally transform. And some of them, I think, until you see the end credits, you'll never know it's the same actor. And then some of them, yeah, there's some tips, and so you can recognize the voices. But yeah, we brought them back.
Well, I think I paused the episode, and there's no one in my apartment. I was like, yeah, that's my boy. He's back. So I was so excited to think that I saw him. And then another, just a random sidebar, another recurring character that I love and I was so happy to see again this episode was Admiral Raquel,
Yes.
Robin Scott. We did I think she was our episode 2 special segment. She popped in and put Lazaro in his place. And I love the way she checks him. She gives him the business and it is so hilarious. So,
and of course, she's doing 2 roles as well.
Oh, is she? I gotta keep my eye out for her second role. I did see on her IMDb. I saw on her IMDb that it said that she's in 4 episodes. So 4 or 5 episodes. And so far I've seen her in 2. So Carrie and I have our eyes out for one of our favorites, Miss Robin Scott, in the next coming episodes. We're on to you. We love it.
It's one of those, I think Jem had mentioned she was gonna come back and was like, see if you can guess who she is.
Yeah.
Well, James, do you think Ihred is done? She gone?
Okay. No. I think I'm gonna quote the great Carrie Lane. If it's no body, you may not be dead. So I don't think so. I think that if that exoskeleton suit was strong enough to like stop the Republicans like armored guards, I feel like it can handle a couple like laser beams. So fingers crossed for Ihred. I think I'll give her 4. She's coming back.
Right. Then otherwise we get 2 deaths in this episode.
I know. I know. We can't handle it.
Yeah, it's too much. And then that fight scene with the slow-mo was so fun because we were told there's one of those in every episode, so this was another fun one of those. I have a question of it because I remember Tim was saying how you have the actors and everybody in the shot has to hold that position as the camera goes by. Elida's holding the case up in the air. Was it held up by something else? Because that'd be really hard, I think, to hold up a box out at an angle for that long. I was like, wait, is something propping it up, or is there a way that she was able to hold it, or what?
Yeah, it's a huge production doing those mannequin challenges, which are so fun. And Jem probably mentioned when she was on your show that she designed those when she made the movie Killer High. She and our cinematographer, her cinematographer from Killer High is our cinematographer from Vagrant Queen, Trevor Calverley. And so they worked out that whole method on doing those scenes. And they're a big production that involves like all levels of the crew. So we design the shot. And then on-set effects comes in and sets up all the things that are going to explode and freeze and move. And we position the actors and everything is supported and designed. And then, there's the complex camera movement that goes through and then multiple shots that are put together in post effects as well. So it's a big fun production to do those, and I really had a lot of fun. I was kind of glad we didn't have to do 2 or 3 per episode though, because it took a really long time. but they're like that cherry on the sundae. I think on every episode that challenge freeze is always a lot of fun.
Yes. Speaking of kind of the laughter that we're having and talking about the serious, we have the chat saying. Adam Rodriguez asks, how do you balance humor and darkness in the show?
Yeah, it's you have to just, give a hat tip to the writers because they designed that structure really carefully, and there's a pacing that they establish in all of the scripts that allow us to go to those different places in the story. And then the key to making it work is really just a great cast who has that range, who can be incredibly goofy, awkward and ridiculous, but also really vulnerable as well. And all of our cast has that range. So it's great because sometimes you work on productions, and I mean that's a big range to ask for an actor, and not everybody can achieve all those different notes, but our cast could. So whenever a scene came up and we did the rehearsals, I was always really confident that we'd be able to hit the right tone, that we'd be able to, either thread in that kind of dark tragedy or, just take it really way over the top and be ridiculous.
Well, it definitely blends very fluidly, but it's like real life. You can have moments that are absolutely tragic, but then the next thing it could be something that makes you laugh. So
it's like quarantine right now. I feel like that every
day. I was like, you're describing what's happening right now.
Yes. Actually, speaking of funny moment, I do want to give a shout out to the moment where Amae's character backstory came into play, where she's talking to the other employees. Was that improv or scripted out or a little mix of both?
A little mix of both. Yeah, there's this ongoing theme for Amae, and that she really likes to get into character whenever they go on a caper, and brings all this backstory. She's very method. So those are always fun scenes. But then of course Alex takes it a little farther, and just like really runs with it. So that was a hilarious scene. I actually love the scene where she bashes that guard with her
yes
and knocks him out, and it was a lot of fun sticking our actor into the broken computer mainframe with the sparks flying out over his face. He was good about that. We had to actually do little things. We had to give him ear protection because his head is physically stuck in a broken computer with actual live sparks exploding around his head and things like that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Just things you have to think about. Safety on set. Super important.
Well, it turned out really cool. So it all worked out for the best. Was there, and then we have the kind of last other important moments in the episode. We have Amae and Elida kind of essentially, earlier they have a, what would you say to your parents? But now it's even more like, what would you say to them? And they're getting their nice, intimate moment. And then we essentially get a cock block by Isaac. And I'm like,
Isaac. My only regret from episode 4 is I had this beautiful insert close-up of Amae and Elida's hands intertwined, and it was very sexy. And I was like, I was watching from the monitor, and I was like, it just works out great. Didn't make it into the final cut, but it's there. It happened. It was a beautiful moment. Very, very sexy.
Yeah, it was sexy. It was sweet. It was one of those. I'm like, because I think there was a poll. Is it too soon or is it right? And I'm like, no, this feels like a right moment. And it's like,
Isaac, it might have happened, except for Isaac. And then we go on, and actually, one of the things I really loved in that sequence is, once they hit the asteroid field, Tim just went crazy improvising with that duct tape.
Oh, that was great.
That was great.
So he was just out of control, taping himself into the chair, and he was just. It was hilarious just to watch, on set. But I thought it turned out pretty good in that cut.
Well, I was gonna say it's not just Isaac who blocked their kiss. They bump into that in more ways than one. Bump into the debris field, and they're pretty much taking a beating. And they crash land on some other random planet.
New planet, new episode. Yep. Always get to go to fun new places. That was one of the cool things about this season is, except for the Winnipeg, which goes from episode to episode. Every director got to go and create a totally different world because they're always on some amazing new location. So that was really fun creatively to get to go and make that world your own and work with the production designer and the cinematographer. Our production designer, Barbie Cardasso, is just brilliant. He's really, really, really great for bringing interesting locations to life. So the next episode is going to be really, really fun.
James, any other thoughts on the episode? I think we covered mostly everything, and then we'll get into our special segment unless you had any other moments that stood out to you.
No, I think we covered it. I wanted to just make sure I got in my my Fembi Natuli question. That was my heavy hitter right there.
Well done.
Thank you.
Nice. Well, we'll save our predictions, but we're going to do our special segment right now. And James, what is it called?
It's called Winnie Who, Winnie What. So, and Winnie Who, Winnie What, we break down, as we discussed previously, some of our favorite characters, who they are, and what is behind the mask. And before I begin, we have a quick moment of silence. Okay. For our homeboy, Clive, who didn't make it through this episode, but I did some research and I got some information onto the actor who plays Clive, and he leads a pretty interesting life. So his name is Kino Lee Hector, as Danishka said earlier. If you guys want to follow him, you can follow him at Kino Lee, KeenoLee, everywhere I saw. So he is a actor, a writer, a singer, a voice artist, and he's from Cape Town, South Africa. He's done a ton of movies and a ton of TV series. TV series he's done, I think I saw, what was it? Bluestone 42, Jamila and Aladdin back in 2016. Some movies. I'm an old school Tremors fan myself. He did I think it was like Tremors 6, I think they're up to now. He did a movie called Tremors in 2018 called Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell. Bloodshot 2020. It's like an action movie that came out.
I remember I saw him in that.
Yeah, it came out March 2020 with opposite Vin Diesel. So he's making some big moves on that front. But my favorite aspect of Mr. Kino that I figured out is that he's in a band called the Black Ties. And this man got pipes. He can sing really, really, really well. So he did an interview with the AfroDaddy.com and kind of went into some detail about himself. His focus was an article called Fathers in Focus, where they highlight some Afro-Caribbean fathers. So they were spotlighting him, and he did a cover of Can't Stop the Feeling on the South African talk show called Espresso Talk. And then he answered some questions that I thought were really interesting too about fatherhood. So one of the questions that he was asked was, who are you and who are your kids and their ages? He says, I'm Kino Lee Hector, a husband and a father of 3-year-old Micah. I'm a singer, an actor, a voice artist, and a jingle writer. Didn't know that about him. And then the second question I thought was pretty interesting. It kind of related us back to Vagrant Queen a little bit. They asked him, what is one thing that surprised you about fatherhood? His answer was, quote, I don't really understand the human capacity for love until I met this little guy. My interactions with him are an integral part of my emotional growth. I honestly feel like I wasn't truly adulting until my son arrived. I thought that was such a beautiful quote, and I could definitely see the same similarities with Elida. And we were talking about how she's creating this new family, this new queendom, as I said earlier. I definitely feel that like she's stepping into her adulthood, the adulthood that wasn't quite preordained for her, but she's stepping into it. So I thought that was a pretty cool parallel that I found with Mr. Clive, Mr. Kino Lee Hector, on this edition of our Winnie Who, Winnie What.
Awesome. Kino's amazing.
Hey. Yeah, he's dope. He was he was a great comedic little aspect to the show, one of many, but he definitely shined, I think, of any of our sub characters in this episode for sure.
I remember his introductory scene where he just goes, Aleta! So great.
And he's like, you brought me food? So,
Yeah.
It's a relatable person, in a way, if you get to somebody's heart through their stomach.
Yeah.
Like, yes. All right, let's get into some predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz
All right,
TV
so I noticed a moment
predictions.
when Isaac is on the ship or maybe they haven't gone back on the ship just yet, but he looks a little sad. I think he gave up some information, maybe not on purpose, but I think he gave up some info to Lazaro. And he's feeling guilty about it. Denisha, do you got to work on that poker face now?
No spoilers, no spoilers.
I think we're onto something, Carrie.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm like, why does he seem so sad after being rescued? I'm like, oh, that is a guilty face if ever I've seen one.
Yeah,
James, what do you
you know,
think?
I had never even considered that, but you're absolutely right. Because that torture scene was very quick. You know, given how in depth we've been getting for some of the action scenes we've seen thus far, that scene in particular was very short. So it leads me to believe that like it was short for a reason, perhaps because
Mm,
we left something out because something happened. So I had never really thought about that. He did have a bit of sadness, like he was, Alita just saved his life, and he was like sad about it. So I wonder why.
Ooh.
Hmm.
and then I
Not
would
gonna
say,
spill any tea, Miss Danishka.
she's like, nope.
No.
And then we almost got the kiss in this episode for Amae and Elida. I feel it could go one or two ways of either it's going to maybe happen very soon, hopefully in the next episode of the one thereafter, or unfortunately this could be a thing where it's just a tease and they're going to get other moments and get interrupted, which could be a decent build up to the final kiss maybe on like the last episode.
Yeah.
I would have
I
loved to
thought
have
it was
shot the
gonna happen.
kiss.
Yeah.
I wish it was in my episode.
And James, what are some of your predictions?
So for me, I think mine are very topical, my predictions this week. I don't know where we are, where the sand planet is, what that little rabbit thing was eating, where we landed. It leads me to believe that we aren't in Wix. I don't think we are. Because if we are, we got there like we're episode 4. Like something's gonna happen in between now and the end. So I think that this new planet is going to be our next. As Daniska says, they have the ability to create these new places and these new creatures. I think that this will be another name on our roster of locales. I hope that this place has like some more of those like big grunt looking creatures and there's like some type of like another like sand fight or something like that. But I love this new destination that we have embarked upon, so I'm excited to see what happens with that. I I think, and also I'm thinking that now, given our knowledge of Alita's like open expression about not wanting to do this whole queen thing, I think that our story may take a turn in a way where we start to really explore what Alita wants to do and her own womanhood. Like I feel like a lot of we're going to Wix to meet her mom, and like it seems like it's always about these other peoples and these other goals. And I feel like now we're finally starting to when I said earlier how Alita expressed to Half that
Mm-hmm.
she's like, I'm not about that life. Like, I'm good over here. Let me do me. I'm good. So I think that moving forward, we will figure out what life she is about. So I'm hoping that we get a bit more exploration into what life she wants to lead. And if that life is with Ame, we are here for it.
Yes. Danishka, is there anything else you'd like to add from working on this episode and being part of this show, this female dominant and women of color show, and being a female director on it as well?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it was just such a pleasure, an honor. I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and my, I guess, biggest concern as a huge fan of sci-fi has been the lack of representation of women. So to have a series about a woman lead, written and directed by women, created with a female showrunner, it's so great. It's just such a nice contribution, I think, to the sci-fi universe. It's a gift for everybody who's been wanting more representation in this genre. So it's really great to see the fans getting so excited about it. It's kind of heartbreaking that we can't be doing live Comic Cons right now, because I know everybody wants to meet the fans, but I know the cast has been really out there doing a lot of outreach to meet everyone in a virtual environment. And the thing that will really make me happy is, the first time I see someone cosplay something from Vagrant Wing, then I will my life will be complete.
Oh, yes.
Well, look out for us, me and Carrie, Halloween 2020.
You know,
Queen, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Fun one to do. it's nice because some of them are just subtle enough that I'm like, oh, that's
Right?
very attainable, and some of the other ones might take a bit more work.
Well, I
Carrie,
did.
I
did
can see
post
Carrie
the-
having those the
Oh,
three
yeah.
prong
Yeah.
ears,
Yeah.
right?
I did share the Port 233 logo patch on Twitter. So if anybody's feeling like
Oh.
throwing on a yellow or orange jumpsuit and
Oh yeah.
apart from 233, you're
Yeah.
set.
Okay, cool.
And then thank you again so much for joining us, Danishka. It was great talking with you about the episode. Where can people find you online? And is there anything else you're working on that you would like to promote?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter and Instagram as Esterhazy. Come find me. We'll chat about Vagrant Queen anytime. And I have a new movie coming out in a few weeks for Lifetime channel called I Was Lorena Bobbitt. So
Nice.
I'm really excited about that. It's a very, very dark, really
Ooh.
important story. So it was pretty amazing to shoot. That'll be out soon.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Yes. And James, where can people find you online?
You can find me at on Instagram at Trail James Maple, on Twitter at James Maple Actor, and I also do a lot of coverage for music and politics on AfterBuzz TV. So check out my articles there, and also do all the coverage for The Masked Singer as well. So look out for all my predictions on that show as well in the weeks coming up.
Very cool. And my name is Carrie Lane. You can find me online at Carrie D Lane. That's KaridLane. And another sci-fi adjacent show, there's the Westworld After Show on AfterBuzz later on this evening, so you can check it out. That's a really fun sci-fi show. Definitely different tone, but we still enjoy it. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us in the live chat with your questions and comments. And if you're watching this later, we love you too. Please comment down below, give the video a thumbs up, share it with other people, because this is a really fun show to talk about, and just want to spread the Vagrant Queen love and give it and receive it. So thank you again so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.